Okay, so hello everybody. I hope you can hear me well and that you can see my screen that I've just shared. So it's a pleasure to welcome you to this masterclass connected to Master DSBA, which means Data Sciences and Business Analytics. So I remind you, this is a joint master between two schools, business school, which is where I am a professor, and CentraleSupélec Engineering School. And the master is joined between the two schools with two campuses in front within the two schools. So you'll have more details, or maybe you have more details about this program. But the purpose of today's talk, my talk, this masterclass, is to present you a case study, an example of analytics that actually I teach in my course. And then that this course is one of the courses of the master that is called Decision Analytics. Actually, this is taught in Master 2, because as you know, there are two years, Master 1 and Master 2. Okay, so my name is Laurent Alfandari. I'm a professor at the ESSEC Business School. So I'm one of the co-academic directors. We have two professors for ESSEC and two professors for CentraleSupélec. And I am at ESSEC Business School in the Department of Information Systems, Decision, and Statistics. Okay, so my talk today will be about decision analytics. So it's part of analytics. I will explain the difference between the other parts of analytics right now. Okay, my case that I'm intent. So I'm not going to do you theory. I'm going to speak over a case study, like from a kind of company that wants to design a network and actually a logistics or supply chain networks. So we need for these models, decision models, because what I'm going to present you today is decision making. And decision making where decisions to make are not that simple, not intuitive, but you need tools, you need models to help you, because it's not just like this. You have to support your decision making by some analytics and models. Okay, so let's start. What I'm going to present today is a field of research and science that is called operations research. So I don't know if you heard this word. If you did if you have some engineering background, I'm pretty sure you heard of operations research. If you did some management background of economics, it's more rare, but this is connected to optimization and decision models. Okay, so Pierre Bateau, who's a researcher, defined operations research as, I have to put my, to a set of models aiming to solve some problems of organization. So it seems that maybe you don't see well because I have many things. I hope you can see well. Some problems of organization, planning, and resource allocation. So it's a toolbox that contains decision models, optimization, whatever the kind of optimization. I'm putting some different kinds of optimization here. Linear programming, that we teach, graph theory, MDP, which is Markov decision processes. What I'm going to present today is part of, I have maybe to put that there. Maybe that would be easier for you to see if I share my screen. So this is part of prescriptive analytics. So let me explain briefly. In this master, we do analytics, data analytics, business analytics, data science. There are three parts in analytics. Basically, 3 stages, 1, 2, 3. So the first is analytics. So that's basic statistics. You analyze the situation. You analyze the present and the past. Why do you do that? You do that for the second stage, which is making forecasts, okay? Making predictions. And that's called predictive analytics. That's the second stage. So you use data, you use information to make predictions because you want to see how it will evolve. For example, the market, the demand, the result of a legal action, for example. You want to see what will be the forecasts. So what will be the future? An estimation of it, of course, and you make errors. And then this is where you use machine learning, deep learning, all these kind of techniques and AI to make predictions. And more usual statistics and forecasting methods. And then why do you make predictions? Well, it's not just for getting information. It's not for your just culture or knowledge. Knowledge is here for decision making. So that's the final stage, is deciding. And that's where I'm going to present things to you now. So deciding is prescriptive analysis. Make a prescription like a doctor. You know, the doctor makes a prescription. So we want to make decisions that are suitable, that are good, that satisfy maybe some constraints, and that actually, for us, we'll say they are optimal, which means they match a given criterion of performance. What managers often say, KPI, key performance indicator. We have several KPIs, but we optimize one at a time. Okay, so, okay, maybe this bar is a bit, yeah, maybe put it here or there. That will be better. Okay, so I will focus on prescriptive analytics, but you have to know that in the master, we have lots of the courses are more predictive analytics, meaning statistics and making forecasts. So the stages 1 and 2, but also at the end, and because there is a management school like ESSEC, part of this master is to make decisions, okay, and hopefully good decisions. So this is a master class. At some point, I will stop to ask if you have questions, and it'd be a pleasure to answer. So let me just present a bit the thing. Okay, so now trying to go to, okay. And we'll speak of models today. So what a model is. The key word to define a model is a representation, which means model is not reality, as you know. It's a representation. And this representation is in some formalism, which means a formal representation. What does it mean formal? It means that it's described in some specific language. This is not English, could be English, okay, natural language. But very often it could be graphical language, as you see here. And sometimes it's mathematical. And math is a language, okay? So why? Because very often you describe a class of phenomena, like let's say some kind of reality. And you want to transfer this reality in some language. And as you see, my examples here, they're very, very often graphical, which means this is not a house, but a kid could guess that with this square, this rectangle and this triangle, this is a symbol of a house. Of course, the real house is much more complex than this. But this represents a house with just a few elements. These are the indifference curve in economics. What does it say here? Pasta and rice. It says that, you know, in economics, this indifference curve means that you have some exchanges of goods between, for example, two products, rice and pasta, such that X1 kilograms of rice and X2 kilograms of pasta have the same satisfaction as another combination X1, X2, which means between 3 and 2 kilograms of the two products, or maybe 4 and 1, the customer has the same level of satisfaction, okay? Or utility, let's say. And then you're on the same curve. And what is it interesting? Because you can exchange goods. It's a good formalism to explain that you can exchange goods. Okay, so when you're the same, where it means you are indifferent between the two combinations of products. And if you're indifferent, you're okay to exchange. And then you have a market. Then you have the third drawing here. Maybe you know it. It's in sociology, it's called the Maslow pyramid. What does it say? It says, Maslow said that there is a hierarchy of needs. A hierarchy, a priority. You have the most priority needs to the least priority needs. And at the time of Maslow, food and security were the top priority, and leisure at that time was not so shared by all people. It's more the case now. But this pyramid still has a sense when you saw what happened with the COVID situation and the lockdowns. What was first allowed as shops was food. Okay, so in France, for example, they forbidden to sell books in the supermarkets. Okay, but they restricted foods. You could still go first necessity goods, you could still buy them. Okay, what I want to say here is not, is it correct or not? What I want to say is that the formalism that is chosen is a drawing, is a graph, okay? So it's something visual, so that people, students, can understand the basics of the phenomenon you want to describe. You have an electrical circuit here. And then the last one, with this maximization problem, it's like what we call a linear program, an optimization problem. X1, X2 are variables, could be the number of tons of product one produced and product two. And this is actually an optimization problem. The second one here is a graph. And the difference between the last one on the right and the four ones on the left is that the four ones are models that are called descriptive. They want to describe a reality or try to explain or to describe. Descriptive models. But the last ones, and the one I will present you today, is not just to describe the situation. It is to decide. Actually, it's to help to decide. Okay, it's a support for decision making. So it's not just describing a situation. It's not just for knowledge. It's using the knowledge to make good decisions. Okay, so a bit of history. I like the story of where does it come from. Okay, I see the chat something. Okay. Yes, if you want to ask questions during the chat, you can. That will be maybe easier. And from time to time, I will check the chat. Okay, so I hope then I have to put that off because even that, okay, so that you see well. Okay, so the operations research was born actually during World War II. I'll try to put that, I guess, maybe that's better. World War II, during the Second World War, because operations comes from military operations initially. Then it came to manufacturing industry, and then it came to management in general, in science. And during World War II, there were many problems of optimization because the armies wanted to construct material in a short amount of time, because you have to have your ship ready for the battle. So there was a big stake to be ready on time. So this is where all the project scheduling, project planning methods, like PERT method, were born. To construct rockets, to construct planes, to construct anything, ships, and so on. To construct military construction project in a minimum amount of time. Now you do that for house, building a house, you do that for launching a new product. In marketing, you do that for many other fields. But initially, this was born in the 40s. Another example that I show you is the radar location. Radar location is the UK was attacked by the German rockets, V1, V2, on the eastern coast, close to London. And you had identified a set of possible locations for radar to detect the rockets before they do damages to the population. And the problem was, out of these possible locations that are the small circles in gray, in green here, which subsets of location I will select to actually build a radar with the constraint. Okay, could somebody maybe guess what the constraint would be in this problem and what the objective could be? Maybe I can ask you through the chat. I managed to see the chat because now I have to see where it is. Here maybe. Okay, let me check. The budget. Okay, budget will be actually the objective function. So we will minimize cost. And if all radars are the same cost, it would be minimize the number of radars. So that will be the objective function. Okay. And if there is a different cost because you have to destroy houses maybe to build the radar and so on, so it's not the same cost depending on the location, then it would be a weighted sum and it's a budget. I agree. Now, what is a constraint? When you locate radars, what do you want to do? Okay, maximum number of people to say, says Xian. Yes, but that would be still an objective function, because if you maximize, I'm speaking more of a constraint. What do you want to be done, to be feasible? Think of, or what do you want to avoid? I'll just let you maybe a few seconds more if you have an idea. Otherwise, I will tell you the answer. Limited time could be limited time. Okay, the answer is that you want your covering to be with no hole, which means you see one of the key data is the radius of the radar, which is this yellow circle, the radius. So how many meters, 200 meters, 400 meters, does it cover? Then you want that your selected black points out of the green points, you want that this subset makes a covering that has no hole, which means it is continuous, there is no hole. So which means that the union of the yellow circles, depending on the radius, this union covers the whole coast with not a single kilometer that is not covered by the detection, which is not detected, because otherwise the rocket could enter without being detected. So that's, and this is not easy to model actually, but this is a famous problem that is called a set covering problem. It's very close to in marketing to locating, for example, commercial centers, shopping malls. Where do you put them? Okay, your Carrefour, Auchan, whatever the brand, Walmart. If you want to select 3 or 4, where should you locate them to cover, for example, maximal coverage of the demand of consumers? Okay, so this is kind of a application. Now you see here today's application: industry, manufacturing. I let you read a bit the applications. Optimal blending is, for example, when you have to mix oils to make a specific product of oil. Job scheduling is finishing a product that is decomposed into tasks into a minimum of time. Transportation is a big sector. Public transportation, RATP, SNCF in France, or freight, okay? Airline companies, which is crew scheduling. When you are on a flight, you are happy to have a crew. Why is it this captain? Why is it these pilots, stewards who welcome you in the plane? Because before there was a model and then an algorithm to solve it that try to cover each flight by a crew and to minimize the cost of the rotations. The cost being like nights spent not in the bases because you have to spend to pay back the hotels of the crews and so on. Okay, and it's also a function of the rest time. You want people to work on the plane, not to wait for 3 days in a city for performing the next flight. Okay, I'm speaking of the crews. Okay, energy is a big sector as well. Network design, electric production planning. I did something, for example, for EDF, the big French company, which was a challenge for researchers to schedule the outages, which is productions and where the nuclear plant stops for the 50 nuclear plants of France. Telecom, the telecom industry, network design. Orange, for example, how do you bring the fiber to the home of all the customers? This is a big graph problem, huge problem with thousands of nodes in the network. Sustainable development, more and more. Why? Because you have norms that are more and more quantitative. So you would not like to reject more than a given number of CO2 units, polluting emissions in the atmosphere. HR would be recruitment sizing. How many people do you recruit? I'm not speaking of one consultant or 2. I'm speaking of this kind of recruitment where you recruit hundreds or tens of people. And marketing, media planning, assortments, which is online recommendation systems, for example, on Google. Okay, so when you have Amazon has millions of references, which 5 references they should show on your screen to you, specific person, or you to me, and this would be different. This is called recommendation systems. And finance, the very famous portfolio optimization problem for one of you who did finance, like Markowitz. Okay, so this just to give a few ideas. Let me check if something is in the chat. No, okay, I can go on. I will go on. Now, okay, so now, these are complex problems. Complexus, complex comes from the Latin word complexus. What does it mean, complexus? It means interconnected, woven together, tissé ensemble in French, okay, like fabrics, okay? So it means there are many dimensions that cross, and because they cross, they're intertwined, it's more complex, okay? And what makes complexity? You have uncertainty as well. I will not speak of uncertainty today, but of course you have many models for dealing with uncertainty, even in decision making. And you have one of the factors is the planning horizon. So I would just like to, before I switch to the case, which is called the Hindersker case, I would like to come to this question of the planning horizon. You have basically three horizons. You have operational, short-term, 1 day, 1 week. Tactical, 3 months to 1 year. The unit is months. And you have strategic, the unit is years, 3 years until 30 years. For example, there was a question of a third airport in Paris region. You have Orly and Roissy. Where should be the third one? Okay, this is strategic. You evaluate decisions for an airport over 25 to 30 years. The same for infrastructures like highways. Okay, building a hospital. This is strategic. Now the question is, and then I would like to say you in the chat, let's take the two extreme horizons. The operational, tomorrow, you plan for tomorrow or today. Or strategic, you plan for years. For which horizon, operational or strategic, do you think you need the most precise model? The most precise model, detail. So please answer in the chat, and I will give you the answer. Do you think you need the most precise model for the operational level for planning for tomorrow, or for a strategic problem for years? So please use the chat, and I will check your answers. What is if I see here, and I will see what you think about this question. Where do you need the most precise model? So don't hesitate to write operational or strategic. So I give you a bit of time, 5 seconds left, just to have a few answers. And then I will tell you if your intuition or your reasoning is good. So let me see. Okay, let's see the chat. Operational, okay, let's see. Both, okay. So operational 1, 2, 3, strategic 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, 1 says strategic and 8 says operational. So the majority is not always true. But in this case, you are right. The correct answer is operational. There is a bias. For example, the managers, the ones who have a management background, they more often say strategic. Why? Because you look at the financial stakes and you say, oh, I don't want to make a mistake. So I will prevent from the risk by having a lot of data to limit the risk, because I'm anxious about the solution, because strategic means higher stakes. If you make a mistake, you pay the mistake for years, which you don't for 1 day. But the correct answer is still operational. Why? Because in 5 years, you don't know which individuals you have, which are your employees, when they are sick, what products you sell. You don't know which references are in your database. You aggregate. So on the long term, you aggregate the products. Who knows what will be the Amazon references in 3 years? We don't know. So we aggregate in tons, in meter cubes. But tomorrow, if I'm a customer of Amazon, I want the 3 Pokemon cards that my daughter wants. I want at my place, at some time window, by some driver. So here you individualize. And if you individualize, you create more indices in your model. I for the driver, J for the product, T for the hour, and so on. But if you're on the long term, you aggregate data. You aggregate customers. And you have a simpler model. And the ironic thing is that, of course, you can guess it's longer and harder to solve when the model is bigger. And it's bigger, so more precise when it's operational. But operational means you have to plan for tomorrow. This is where you don't have time. So you need the best algorithm to solve larger problem when you don't have time. And when you have time, which is strategic, you don't need that time because models are much simpler, like facility location. The model I will present to you today is quite simple. Not that simple, but compared to others. Okay, last thing, so the correct answer was operational, and I will speak, we can also use machine learning and artificial intelligence to make forecasts And more in optimization, you have these AI and machine learning things to make the forecasts that will feed the data, the input data, for example, the demand, that will serve to make decisions like planning, production, how much do I produce, where do I locate the warehouses, where do I locate the distribution centers, the McDonald's selling points, whatever. Okay, so if you want more, you have an example of a nice repositioning problem of shared bikes in London. Aeroadev.org is a French operations research and decision aid scientific website. You have this aeroadev.org, and you have Pro de l'Aéro, I mean, industrial projects. You can see many things of challenges from companies that are very nice. You can see all the problems, like the EDF electricity problem I spoke of, Renault, manufacturing, many others. Okay. Now, let's go to the problem. My problem is called Hinduscare. So Hinduscare is a case that I created, actually. So suppose you have this Hinduscare company, which is an Indian company, that wants to settle in Europe, where they are not present. So we want to design a supply chain. Let me explain briefly. In yellow, so I have done the case so that it's tractable in 3 hours, actually 2, by students, because I give them a challenge in my course, and they work on it on 3 hours, and they must be fast because there are prizes to win if they get the good solution with Excel solver and the modeling, because I insist always on the modeling. So to make it tractable, you may know that Excel solver, which will be the simple tool I use, I will explain there are other solvers. Excel solver can handle 200 variables, 200 decision variables. This looks a lot, but for real problems, this is really not that much. So with this limitation of 200 variables, I can imagine a case where I have 21 customers to serve. These are the yellow points, clients here. And these red points here are possible locations, possible sites where I could build a factory, a Hinduscare factory to supply the customers. So the problem is simple. You know, as data, the distances between 2 locations. You know the plant capacities. Okay, what would be the maximum amount you can produce in a plant? You know how many units one customer wants to be served. And so this is done by forecasting methods, but we suppose the outputs of the forecasting method will be the input of my decision model. And you want to locate 3 plants. So out of the 8 squares, you want to select 3. What would be the criterion? Very simple, to be as close as possible to the customers. I have another case that I designed that is called the Amazon case. And this is the Amazon case, which is given in the DSBA master, which is why I present this other case, which is Hinduscare, but it's close to it. So what you want to optimize is the quality of service, QoS. And quality of service here will be the average distance or time to the customers, what is called time to market. I hope the problem is clear. Again, I check, no, nothing on the chat, so I hope I'm clear. And then I'm going to speak of that case. Okay, so the last 35 minutes will be about this. I hope so far so good. So you want to satisfy the customer demands. You want to respect the capacities of the plants. And you have an objective function that is time to market or distance to market. So which 3 red squares should I select to put a facility, what we call facility location, a plant, a factory of the Hinduscare company, to be as close as possible to the yellow customers? Be careful when I say close, I mean weighted average, because they have different demands. There could be large customers and small customers. Okay, so this is the data. So of course, I do simple for the students, but in the course, we will present you other tools like Cplex or Gurobi, which are commercial solvers. You have to know these solvers for companies are sold like a price of 15,000 euros, which is not that low. They are free for academics. Because why? Because when you gain 1% of cost of the real problems, sometimes 1% means 500,000. Okay, so for very large companies. So there is a stake to optimize. with optimization methods and tools, not only you save money if your criterion of performance is financial, like a cost or a profit, but also you can automatize things that you cannot do manually anymore. For example, the crew pairings, crew scheduling problem in the flights I spoke of. Companies at Air France, they still did it by hand on the board in the 80s, but now it's not possible anymore. You have hundreds of flights, and you have something thousands of hostesses and stewards to construct the schedule of. So this is too large. You can't do it by hand anymore. And you can explore scenarios, what if analysis, sensitivity analysis. What if I change that? What if I change that data? Automatically, you press the button and you have the new solution. So here's the data. You have the 21 customers in yellow, row by row here, from Lisbon to Zagreb. In the columns, you have the possible locations of the plants. Zaragoza in Spain, 3 in France, Montpellier, Orleans, and Lens. 1 in Germany, Karlsruhe. You have Ljubljana, Praha in Czechoslovakia, and Budapest, Hungary. Okay, so these are 8 possible locations. Remember, you must select 3. And the demand is here. So this is what the estimates from the forecast says. Lisbon wants 557 tons of products. Madrid will want 1,700 tons, etc., until the last customer. So you have all this data, and you must build a model. Okay, so of course, these are macro aggregated customers, big cities, but you can guess this gathers many smaller cities and villages. But of course, I want the case to be tracked. Now let's move on. Here is, I dare, in this masterclass, I dare to spend one slide that is a bit quantitative, but anyway, the master is quantitative, but not only, you know, you have quantitative courses, computer science courses, forecasting, machine learning, deep learning, statistics, and so on. So optimization as well. And you have also management courses, business intelligence, economics, and information systems. So it's mixed. So here, this is the decision model. So I always have 5 stages when we have a decision model, whatever the application, could be in finance, could be in marketing. The first stage is what are the dimensions of the products? What crosses together? Customers, time, hours, months, products. So here we have 2 dimensions that cross. We have the possible, we have the 21 customers. I create an index I for the customer. And the possible locations of the factories, which for the moment are just empty side. There's nothing on it. I call it J. 2 indices, I and J. Okay, which actually corresponds of the 2 dimensions of the matrix, the yellow and the orange, rows and columns. There could be more dimensions. Then you have the data. The data, number 2, data is the parameters that are constants. It's exogenous, I have no control on that. The distances, so there is a distance matrix, which I showed before, and the demand of each customer in tons. I always specify the units. So DI, the demand of customer I, DIJ, the distance between I and J. And then the critical stage, when you have the decision model, is stage 3. It is to find the decision variables. And to find the decision variables, this is not a matter of being a good mathematician. This is a matter of understanding your problem. What is to be decided, even if I don't use a model? How would I communicate my decision to my colleagues, to my intern, or to my N+1, my boss? What would I say? I would say, okay, we put a plant here, here. This plant supplies this number of tons to this customer. This would be what I call the shape of the decision, the head of the decision, of the solution in a way. So this I put in blue, and also in the solver I put it in blue. So just to tell you, so I will describe the model, and then I will see if there is a question on the chat before showing you the solution. So before plunging into a solver or a software, we have to think, to rest a bit, to have an empty white page, and to write the model. And this model that would be an Excel solver or any other solver. Actually, a good solver, commercial solver, they have a syntax that looks like this sigma that you think here, that you see here, it looks like this. So it's close to this language, actually. Okay, so the decision variables are twofold. The first one, yj, is a yes-no variable, binary, Boolean. Yes, no, on this side j, out of the 8 possible possibilities, yes, no, I build a Hinderscale factory in this location, yes or no. Yes, no means 0, 1, binary. First decision to make. Second decision to make, there are two possibilities. Xij, either you say this is a number of tons supplied from side j to customer I, and you can model your problem. But then it's a bit harder to get to the single source problem. I will explain that, because single source means the demand of a customer is served by a single facility. Multi-source means the demand of a customer can be split between different facilities, which means you can serve 40% from here, 30% from here, and 30% from the third one. This is called multi-source. Single source means 100% of the demand comes from the same place, the same factory. You understand? Okay, so just to adapt more easily between the two models, I'll have a model in terms of percentage. So I say Xij is a percentage of customer I that is supplied by side j. Okay, so if somebody has a demand of 200, if Xij is 50%, then 100 will be supplied by this side. When I define Xij, I and j indices should be in the definition, Xij. Okay, so it could be tons or percentage of the demand. Now, what are the constraints? You want to locate 3 plants, or in general, k plants. So I say the sum of the yj, the location variable here, is k, is 3. Out of the 8 variables, the binary ones, the location variables, 3 will be 1, 5 will be 0. Where? I don't know yet. I'm doing the modeling stage. Then I will solve. Okay. Second constraint. It's for every customer. Each time you have a demand satisfaction. So I say for every customer I, between the 21 customers here, the sum of the percentage, all the demand is served, which means the sum of the Xij is 1. Okay, the sum of the percentages will be 1, meaning, as I said, 40% will come from here, 30% from here, 30% from here, but it can't be 80%. I don't want to lose any demand. So all the demand is served. This is this constraint here. M is the number of sites, 8, okay? M is 8. And the last constraint that you see here is the capacity of the plant. It is to say, the left-hand side of the constraint is what the facility J will actually supply to all customers. Well, it will supply, it decomposes, that's why you have a sigma. It decomposes by customer of the number of tons it served to this customer. And what is the number of tons it served to this customer I? Well, it is this demand of I, di, multiplied by the percentage of this demand that you decide to serve him or her. So di multiplied by Xij. Di in ton, Xij is a percentage, so you have tons. You have tons on the left and you have tons on the right, because we say, actually it's a mistake here, it's 11,000 tons. I say my data, this is the capacity of each plot. So I say, anyway, the total demand is something like 31,000 tons of demand, and you build 3 plants with 11,000, so the total capacity will be 33,000, a bit more than the demand. So it's feasible. And look at something. On the right-hand side, it's 11,000 multiplied by yj, which is a binary variable. So if yj is 0, which means you don't open the facility, the capacity will be 0. So nothing will come out from this side. That remains an empty field. But if yj is 1, then the capacity will be 11,000. And this is the true capacity of the plant. Okay. And last but not least, here you have the objective function. So the objective function you have to pay attention, but this is the average number of kilometers to supply 1 ton per ton. Okay. So which means the total number of kilometers to serve all tons. So here, this double sum, to serve all the tons to all the customers. In supply chain, they call that ton kilometers, ton multiplied by kilometers. And you divide by the total tonnage, the total demand in tons. So you divide ton by kilometers divided by ton, you will have an average number of kilometers per ton. So in average, how close are you to your customers? And you have to weight by the demand, because as I said, you have large customers and small customers. Okay. I just make a very short break in case there is a question about this before I go to solution. No, you will use Python and C++ in the master, but in the course you don't use Python. Why? Because we have modelers that directly translate this model into a language that is read by the optimization solver. So sometimes you can build by Python the model itself, but I'm answering the question on the chat, okay? But you don't need to. You can directly write this model with some syntax and give it to the solver, and it will give you the output file with the optimal solution. Now let's see the solution now. Solution is here. Okay, Excel file. So I have shared my screen. Okay, so now how do I? Okay, I share another screen, which is this one. I'm checking time meanwhile. I hope I'll be on time. I think I will. Okay, so I'm using what is called Excel solver. Again, Excel solver is just for pedagogical reason. In the course, which is in Master 2, you will use like Cplex or Gurobi, other more powerful tools that can handle thousands of variables, which sometimes is needed. The crew pairing problems in airline companies, so assigning crews to the flights, it's millions of variables. That's one of the most complicated problems I know. Okay, so here is you have the data. Then look at the solution. So I skip the details, but I use Excel solver. Where is it? It's okay. Anyway, I won't show it to you because I want to be fast enough. But here you have the Excel solver. So let me show you. So here in blue, I put my decision variables. The Excel solver, you will see how to build an Excel solver and the models. But trust me, in Excel solver, you put exactly the constraint as the one with the sigma I wrote just before. So the optimal solution is to open 3 facilities at Montpellier, France, Lens, France again, and Prague. Okay. If you want no more than one site in France, you would say the sum of the French variables, Montpellier, so this plus this plus this, is less than 1. Then you'll never have 2 in the same country. You can add this if you wish. Now look at the solution. In blue, this is in tons. This is a model in tons. So this is the number of tons supplied to Montpellier from Lisbon. So you can see Montpellier will be completely supplied from Lisbon will be supplied from Montpellier, which is the closest. The same for Madrid. Montpellier is in the south of France, is the closest from Lisbon and Madrid. But from Le Havre, which is a customer, Le Havre is on the west of Paris, it will be supplied by Lens, which is in the north of France. And Frankfurt, which is here, will be supplied by Prague, which is in the Eastern Europe, which makes sense, okay? But look at something, this is a multi-source. Sometimes you have customers, where is Napoli? No, this is a multi-source. Okay, single source. I think I made a mistake. This is a single source solution. I will show you the multi-source solution. So what you see here, everything is delivered. The sum is equal to the demand. You have 3, the sum of the y variables is equal to 3. Sum of the yj is 3. The total production or supply by a factory is less than its capacity, which is 11,000. But you can see that Lens here is not at full capacity. So there is a reserve of capacity here, whereas these 2 ones are full. You could relax this constraint if you wish. That's easy to do. Okay. And then, yeah, let me see. And then the optimal solution is here. In average, you transport 1 ton over 524 kilometers, which if you use a truck that has average speed of 75 kilometers per per hour. This means in average 7 hours to reach the customer. For example, for Amazon, that would be too much. Amazon has built its success on a very dense logistic network to be able to serve every customer in 1 day, but even less than 1 day, in half a day, and sometimes in 2 hours maximum. And you have contracts if you want to be delivered in 2 hours, half a day, 1 day. Okay, so that's why you see so many Amazon warehouses everywhere. Okay, but they use analytics. You know, actually, Amazon recruited 7 of our DSBA graduates this year. So lots of things, even for supply chain. But that's just an example. You do for many sectors: health, marketing, science, engineering, and so on. Let me see if this is the okay. This is a single source. The same. This is the same where variables are 1 or 0, which will be your supplier. Okay, so exactly the same solution, but for single source. So now let me show you the PowerPoints of a team of students, actually the executive MBA, who did something just to show you. Yeah, diaporama. Okay, who did something about, okay, let's skip the introduction. So they did something very well, showing the results as a visualization of the solutions. So you see, Lens is here, Montpellier is here, and I think it's Praha, which is here. And you see who serves what. And you see that in the multi-source solution, there are 2 cities. Oh, I stopped. Okay, I just had a message saying that my connection was unstable. So I hope you didn't miss too much of my last words. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So you see what the students did. So like they did not only the locations that you can visualize on the map, but also what are the flows, what are the assignments, what are the supplies between the customers. And then you measure the supply by the average distance, okay, or average time, whatever. And you see that Frankfurt and Napoli are the only 2 customers that have multi-source supplying, which means Frankfurt serves part of its demand from Lens, part of its demand from Praha, that are the 2 closest, and Napoli, part of its demand from Montpellier, and part of its demand from Praha. Of course, Napoli is a bit far away from everywhere. So I guess the quality of service for Napoli will not be that good. Whereas from Le Havre, which is close to Lens, or London, it will be much better. So of course, you have a dispersion, you have the variance. But in the objective function, I put the average. If you want to control the variance, you can. You can put a threshold on the maximum time you want to supply. You can put a norm 1, minimize the absolute value, the gaps to the average, okay? If you want to do the quadratic, the variance, it's quadratic, it's a more complex optimization problem, but you can still do. Okay, so that was nice what they did. They put the KPIs, the key performance indicators here on the right. They put the minimum average distance. They did the same for single source. So this is single source, a single assignment, 100% comes from the same place. It's very close to it. Why? Because the other solution was almost single source. So now it's single source. Now Napoli is only served by Montpellier. And Frankfurt is only served by Praha. And you switch to 535 kilometers per hour instead of 524, a bit more, because you change a bit locally the solution. You see? Now, what I ask the students is, what if you change some data? For example, what if you could have budget for more sites than 3? So you see here, the more sites you have, if you have budget to construct more Kindred Care centers, it's better because you can be closer to the customer. You can scatter more your locations. So, but at some point, it's not useful anymore. So you just gain marginally just a bit. But between 4 and 5, between 3 and 4, there is a big gap. Between 4 and 5, and after that, less and less. So you see, it's a bit convex like this. But is it worse? Well, it depends on your investment budget, because not only and the functioning cost, not only your quality of service. So this is always a trade-off. Management is a conflicting criteria. Economics. So of course the solution changes. Let me show you. They said, what if I I'm back. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me? Yes, okay. Sorry for the interruption. My connection was unstable. Fine, so let me go back here where I was. Okay, so you can make a lot of sensitivity analysis, and this is called the exploratory power of the tool, which means you can build scenarios very quickly and get the new solution. Okay, so let's wrap up a bit. Limitation. Okay, I always ask for limitations of the case. What are the limitations of the model? Let's keep that. But that's very interesting to understand what are the limitations of the model, because a model is a choice to make. There is no science that would tell you what should be your model when you make decisions. Okay, I'm speaking of decision making. You have to make choices. You have to get rid of some aspects. You have to give priority to some other aspects. It's craftsmanship, artisanat in French. Okay, it's a mix of science, rocket science, is in the algorithms to solve the problem. Okay, so let me switch back to my slides. Conclusion. I will conclude now. Okay, so I don't know if you can see me. Yes, it seems to be okay. Oh, so this is a conclusion. Okay, so with these prescriptive analytics tools, you can optimize what we call key performance indicators: quality of service, delivery time, cost, market share, CO2 emissions, whatever. Very often it's cost minimization and cost cutting. But you can use this tool for sustainable development. I have a lot of cases with sustainability issues when you want to minimize emissions. So you have to decide. Nobody is there to tell you what should be your criterion. You decide your criterion. Okay? This is part of your strategy. If you're a low-cost company, you will choose a cost. If you're more in a luxury brand, you will favor the quality of service. Of course, under budget, but maybe this is less an issue. Okay? So you put the science in the solving. You still have quantitative model with math to model the problem, but you have to make choices about your model. Then you need to have, before that, the quality of the output of your decision model will depend on the quality of your input data. And very often, input data are not just fixed concept, but they are forecasts. So of course, you should have good predictive analytics. That's why in the master, we have a lot of these predictive analytics courses: forecasting, machine learning, deep learning, AI, and so on. Okay? So the quality of a decision model is dependent on the quality of the data. Make good predictions. Okay, you have to model first. Don't plunge into the solving. Don't try to solve the problem before you modeled it correctly. What are your criteria? Do I put this criterion as a constraint? Do I put this criterion as an objective? Are there several objectives? Okay. Time to market is, of course, in supply chain. I told you for Amazon or this big company, these platforms, time to market is a key issue. So very often you would minimize time under budget, but it could be something else. Again, my fifth point is about the precision. Is it very important to double the volume of your model, to have many more decision variables and constraints, if your data are very imprecise? If you have 20–30% mistake on your data, you should not refine too much your model. You should adapt the precision of your model to the quality of your data. Okay, so then the point of the level of detail, operational versus strategic, I already spoke of this before. And just that you know that, of course, you deal with uncertainty with forecasting models and machine learning and so on. But also in optimization, when you do decision making, you have what we call stochastic optimization and robust optimization, where you can say that some parameters vary in some range, okay, with some control variation in some range, and you want to optimize your decision under the worst scenario, the worst deviation of your uncertain parameters. This can be done in optimization. This is called robust optimization. And we have tools to do that, okay? So that's more at the research level, but there are things to do that. Okay, so we are 5 minutes before schedule, and I think I'm done with my presentation of this case study I wanted to show you. Just as an example, what we can do with prescriptive analytics, that's quite representative of, okay, there are hundreds of problems in decision analytics, and some are not linear. Here it was linear programming, but if you minimize the risk of a portfolio in finance, it would be quadratic. If you are in the energy sector, there are a lot of nonlinear functions. This is more complex. You could have binary variables, 0, 1. That's more complex as well, because the solver is longer to solve. This is another issue. We can explain that. But you also have good predictive models to get the good data for your predictions and forecasts. Okay, I hope I was pretty clear. I'm sorry for the interruption, but if there are questions, I would be ready and pleased to. Okay, I see some questions. So I think Guillaume Chevillon will, after me, speak more of the master. So if there are some questions about the master, I guess my colleague, Guillaume, who is the other professor from ESSEC, will answer, but I can still have answers. So do you have come from STEM? What do you mean by STEM? I'm sorry, but what do you mean by Ashantim? I cannot answer the question about the STEM undergraduate background to apply for this master's course. What I can tell you, because I don't know what STEM is, but okay, so if you don't have a background in computer science and not much math, so what you can do is, if you have an engineering background, you can, thank you, science, technology, engineering, and math. Okay, so if you have already a science, technology, engineering, and math, you could apply to the Master 2, so the second year. Okay, you are completely eligible for the Master 2, and normally you are equipped for following the courses, no problem. Is the GMAT necessary? Yes, GMAT or GRE. I think Tajmal also, which is the French test, I think, but Tajmal is the law. But GMAT or GRE, and be careful. We look at the quantile also for the quantitative parts. So do practice your GMAT or GRE. Yes, it is required for entering the master. Now, about the background, if you have a management or economics background, you can completely enter the master. But you can sometimes go to Master 2 if you have did a lot of quantitative courses, for example, finance background, and you have market finance with stochastic processes and so on, econometrics, you can go to Master 2. If you did just a bit of math with like linear algebra, calculus, and a probastat course, and you don't have a computer science course, then you could enter Master 1. Okay. But you should have still a bit of math and stuff. Okay. So I can see that my colleague Guillaume Chevillon has just entered. So Guillaume, there was just a question about that maybe you see on the chat. So about the background. So what I said is that I focus on my masterclass, and then I will let my colleague Guillaume Chevillon answer your question about the master itself and the conditions for applying to the master. So thank you for the contact. If there is one last question about what I presented, I'd be glad to answer. And then I will switch to Guillaume Chevillon's presentation. So if there is potentially one question, I would. And should I share the sample of that solution? Yes, I think I could do that. I have to see with the staff in Singapore how we can do that to share my presentation, but maybe not my Excel slides for sure. I will give in to the Singapore staff and could share. Again, I have the message saying my internet connection is unstable, so I hope you could hear my last words. And so I would do the wrap up here. It was a pleasure doing this masterclass and maybe seeing you next time in the master. And I leave the floor to my colleague, Guillaume Chevillon. So Guillaume, the floor is yours. And I say goodbye to the others.
Thanks, Laurent. Many thanks. Yeah, so I will now go through all the questions you may have. Knowing that because I just joined in, I don't have access to the history of the chat. So you'll have to, if there are any questions, that you'll have to ask them again in the chat. Thanks, Laurent. So I think unless there's nothing, yeah, I think we can proceed now. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Are you the host, Guillaume? Do you need to share?
I'm not, but
okay?
But I think it should be okay. I will have we're going to see. It should be okay. I'm going to try and share.
Yes, maybe. Okay, so I will leave. Have a good presentation.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Sorry, I have always so many windows. So let me see. So basically, hi everybody. The idea of what I'd like to do today is like we have an hour, and I know that most of you will have already quite a few questions. So I'm going to go like through a short overview, and don't hesitate to interrupt me. While I'm presenting, I may not be able to see the slide. I don't have one screen in front of me. So that's something that you may want to consider. So don't hesitate to reach out and speak out if you need. Okay. So I assume that you can see my screen, and let me make it a full view, and I will open the chat. So yeah, so I can see the chat at the bottom. Right. So the point now is to go through everything. So let me go through it. So we have a master program that started in 2015 as a joint program between ESSEC Business School and CentraleSupélec. So we've been very happy. Lots of things have been happening in the last few years and been developing it a lot. So I go take you through some elements which might be different from what you saw in the brochure. Yeah, don't hesitate to see if there's anything that you'd like to question. Okay, so this is kind of the staff when people start arriving at ESSEC and CentraleSupélec. So we have program managers. Program managers are the people who are going to be kind of the day-to-day management of the program. So interacting with students, making sure that the courses are well programmed and everything runs smoothly. So we have 4 program managers, 2 on the ESSEC side and 2 on CentraleSupélec side. We have one now as of last March, April, we have hired an executive director. So Abdelmonaim Deraz has joined us, and you may see him on LinkedIn, and you can always contact him. His job is to make sure that all the students have a great professional life after the master. So the idea is that we reinforce all the connections with the companies, and we have a lot of them. And making sure that we optimize all of this and make sure that all students have somebody who's professionally qualified to answer any question they may have about their career and also reaching out to the alumni community. Abdelmonaim has 12-year experience in data consulting, so he was working at Ecometrics for many years and also developed further activities. And it's something which is very important for such a master to really make sure that, you know, you find the job of your dreams and you're happy with the way things work. And we also have a lot of master classes, interaction with companies for student career fairs and things like that. We have 4 academic directors. You've just met Laurent Alfandari. He's also at ESSEC, a colleague, and myself, Guillaume Chevillon. And we have 2 colleagues at CentraleSupélec, Franciscos and Nikos, who are dealing with the program on their side. And we also have a track in Singapore, and Li Yan is she's the coordinator for Singapore, and she's really kind of making sure that, well, for students that spend a term in Singapore, things run smoothly. And we have also, I didn't mention that because they're really targeting the people in Singapore. We have also program managers directly for Singapore. A bit about the cohort last year, this year. So I think the rankings for QS will be due tomorrow. So that's the only ranking that we participate, because it's very difficult to have a ranking that is international on business analytics. So that's our only ranking where we appear, and we've been on average number 3 worldwide. We know that, you know, rankings are rankings. So we're very happy that the program is being very recognized. So it's like the average of a 2019 to a 22, so like 3-4 years. You know, if like 1 year in, 1 year out, we may vary a bit, but typically we tend to be 1 or 2 in Europe and 3 in the US, worldwide, with 2 competitors from the US at the MIT and UCLA so far. This year we have a slightly decrease in the number of female students. We normally have a full parity. The last few years we've been really having like almost 50-50, and then this year we have a little bit less, but we hope that it's going to correct itself next year. You see that we have almost 180 students nowadays from 31 countries. Essentially, people coming. I'm going to show you a bit where they come. But we have a range of people, and you see on the top right for M1 and M2. So M1, just to make sure, M1 is the first year of the 2-year program. So we call it Master 1. That's a French kind of French way of speaking. And M2 is Master 2, the second year of the program. So people who do a 1-year program enter directly in M2. People who do a 2-year program will start with M1 and then move to M2. We used to call it Cycle 1, Cycle 2, but now we call it M1 and M2. That was done. And you see that overall on the right-hand side, top right here, you see that, people do have some experience. Not everybody has experience. So at M1, you see like quite a few don't have any professional experience except maybe internships, but they haven't worked. But quite a few come back to the program after a few years of work, and because they realize, you know, their previous studies were one of those at the bottom. And they may not have the background or the skills that they think that they require right now in the workplace. So they come back for 1 or 2 years with us. And we have quite a few nationalities. You have at the bottom left, the average GMAT. So it varies from 1 year to the other. So roughly it's 700 to 720 for the GMAT, and GRE Quant. We also will look at the other one, but I'll report the GI Quant, which is something that people care a lot in general, is on average 167 out of 170. And for the direct entry to the M2 and for direct entry, or for I-entry to the M1 for the 2-year program, it's a bit lower because people have less studies behind them. And we have more people that come from management, for instance, or humanities and communication. Essentially topics or fields where they didn't do so much maths before. All right. I don't know if there are any questions so far. Don't hesitate to put them in the chat. Otherwise, I will proceed. This is the where people come from. So you have people these are the former studies and nationalities and where people come from. So, well, of course, lots of countries like Singapore, Taiwan, China, all these kind of areas. And we have one student from Bhutan. This year, some countries do not show up. Sorry, this is just a square that I could not remove from the map. I did the map myself, so if you think it's not great, kind of don't hesitate to help me next time. We'll have to ask students actually. So the idea is that you see people are coming from all over the place, M1, M2, and when it's dark green, it's both M1 and students that come from there. Okay, so that's, you see that the range of countries. We are still a bit underrepresented from Oceania, so the Pacific countries. And nobody this year studied in Australia. You know that Australia has been closed for a couple of years. But we tend to have people from the whole of Singapore area, so Philippines and Indonesia from time to time, but this time not this year, only Malaysia. Well, you see overall, and Africa is still underrepresented, unfortunately, but we every year have students that come from there. Sorry, I just realized that I took the Excel map, so you see that there's like some gray area. So this gray area, I think the French Guiana, but I don't know what this gray area is. So I'm discovering it as I speak. Okay, so I see that Avani has already got a question. So let me go through this question. I think it's an interesting one. The way we proceed is that typically students apply to M1 or M2, to the 1 year or 2 year program. And we review all files very carefully, and we wonder and we ask ourselves at each point in time whether students will be better placed in M1 and M2, which means that there's no strategic application or any kind of actually applying to M1 versus M2, different in background. Applying to M1 or M2 is a very strong indicator. So it just tells us, okay, this is where you see yourself because this is what you'd like to do. So it's very important. And after that, we will review the M1 student, all the candidates for M1, and we ask ourselves whether they would be a better place for M2 or M1. And the same with the students that apply directly to M2. Yet do give it so don't apply randomly though, because it's important that you think about what you're going to do, but we will think about it as well on our side. And it happens a lot that we offer M1 places to students that have applied to M2, and we also from time to time recommend M2 for students who apply to M1. Typically, if you have a 4-year bachelor program behind you, don't hesitate to apply to M1 because as you've seen, like it's actually lots of people, the age range is quite large. So we really have people that usually go up to their early 30s, which means that we have a mix even in M1 of students who have quite a lot of professional experience, and they're so quite with more maturity and more seniority and more a slightly different profile, which is very interesting for group work and with the whole kind of cohort. And don't hesitate to apply to M1 if you believe that you could take advantage of that before you get ready to M2. For M2, we can go through that a bit later, but we're really looking for people who are directly operational in M2, people that can fit entirely in the M2 program, making sure that they're good at coding, they have strong skills in maths, and they also have some professional experience potentially through internships or jobs, so that they already have this kind of understanding. It may happen that some people don't have any professional experience, but it's very rare, and it would be. I'm not saying it will not happen, but we have to be careful there. Right. So there was a question. Maybe, since we are at application time 1, okay. So that's a long. Okay. So Ashanti, maybe. Ashanti, sorry, I'm trying to figure out where your first name and your last name stop and end in your Zoom name. No, we have, as you see, you have lots of people that come from, well, here this year, we don't have people, that many people coming from humanities and communication, but we do have people that have a non-scientific background or non-STEM background. They're applying to the M1. If you don't have a STEM background at all, it would be probably difficult, and we're probably not going to be able to make it directly to the M2, but that's a point of the M1. And we go through the M1 course and the philosophy in a few slides, but the idea really is about taking everybody from different fields and kind of creating something new from that, which is people who are well versed in sciences and economics and management, no matter where they come from. Of course, depending on your background, we have more. Some courses might be easier for you, or you have more preferences, but we see that. So that's about it. Let me go through all these questions about GPA. Okay, that's it. Okay, Marilyn, I think I've answered your question together with the Ashan team. And the question about GPA requirement, no, we don't have a minimum GPA requirement, but we look at the GPA very carefully. So that means we do look at not just at the GPA, but we actually look at individual courses. So the transcripts are super important. We look very carefully at the transcripts, all the courses you've taken, and see the diversity of courses or the non-diversity, which can be also very, very interesting. So we're really trying to understand your profile, and we make sure that you have the requirements for the course. We look at individual grades for each course. So we spend a lot of time on that. So they mean there's no minimum GPA requirement, because it depends. We know that some schools grade more with the GPA can be more difficult to get. A high GPA can be more difficult to get in some universities compared to others. So we really target it to this. And we have over the years we have now quite a good expertise, and the two schools have a good expertise in assessing all the universities worldwide. So we under program, so we pay a lot of attention to this. I was going through this, so I said this 50% with without prior experience. That's very rough. I didn't do the maths this time around. That's a very rough estimate over the last few years. So, but it means that whether you have or not, shouldn't be feeling compelled to apply. But for the M1 in particular, we do not require any professional experience. For the M2, we do tend to ask for some experience. The average starting wage this year is $86,000 at the purchasing power parity. We use the IMF, International Monetary Fund, purchasing power parity for people who work in different countries, study in different do the internship in different countries. So typically I will show you later down where they're working, but or at least the people are just going out. But the best source of information is LinkedIn. So all our students post on LinkedIn. But I want to, when you're looking through and skimming through LinkedIn, be aware that on LinkedIn there is no there's a page that has emphasis on business analytics. And the students do register at that, but some students prefer to register as ESSEC Business School and CentraleSupélec separately, because LinkedIn does not allow for one page to be a subsidiary of two schools. So they don't allow for joint programming students. So that's why students tend to appear a bit differently on LinkedIn. So kind of go through that a bit. Okay, so in terms of yeah, so basically this kind of what I will go back to that job a bit later, but lots of people become consultants, and they work for like the industry, finance, banking, lots of different sectors, pure players, Google. I mean, Google, Amazon, or all of these. And they some are more in the product, so some people could be marketing, some people are really data scientists. So we have a wide interest, a varied output in terms of students' preferences and what they end up doing. And quite a few of them have created their own company, and we see that we have quite a lot of companies every year that have been created. Or students work for a few years and they create their company after a few years of experience. I didn't write it down here, but some people also go for PhD program. So we have every year some students go for a PhD. Okay. So so before I go through the actual description of the programs, if there's any question about that, let's go through the this question. So Thuy Nguyen is asking business analytics. So yeah, well, it depends on what you mean by business analytics. So essentially, one thing which is important, you can see when I detail the program, we do data science and business analytics in the sense that we do not consider courses, this program, to be just about computer science, as some people do, and applications. We do believe that if you want to strive in the long run, and this is foundation for your career, you need to understand not just the libraries that are out there and be good at programming, but you need to understand the maths and the limitations to the packages that you could be using, the techniques that you could be using, because these are going to be evolving a lot, and you need to be able to catch up and follow up what is going on. So this is why this is a program that is strong in maths and statistics, and hence optimization and the mathematical aspects, so that we really want a good understanding of the techniques, so that when you do something, you use it accurately and with impact. So that's very important. And we also want people to be well-versed into the understanding of companies. So you're going to see that we spend a lot of time preparing you for your future work and interacting with companies. So I'm not going to enter a reply to any specific question right now. We can see that at the end about, I see that Charbel Tomé asking about specifics about your background. Whether you can directly apply to M2, it depends if it's a 4-year program or 2-year or 1-year program, and it really depends on your background. So I cannot answer with just the name of the degree, because it depends on what courses you've taken, and that we take into account very carefully. If you've never done any statistics, for instance, or very little coding, which is possible for a civil engineering degree, then especially a BA, a BEng, you may not be suitable for the M2. So if you've never done any coding, that would be very difficult. If you haven't done statistics, that could be difficult. Yet it will depends on your specific course, but let's talk about that later. Mitsuoka May, we have students who go to a PhD. So either ESSEC PhD, so we have Li Han, a student who was just arriving this year to ESSEC PhD in data analytics, but some people have been doing PhD at, I don't know if anybody yet has done it at CentraleSupélec, but we have people that have been doing PhDs in France, in the US, in Singapore, actually, as well, and in other countries. Abdel Munaim we've been collecting this information, so let me think other places. I'm trying to remember other countries. I don't remember top of my mind, but yes, people do go on doing a PhD after the program. Mingshu, I will let you go through that. I mean, the idea is it really depends on what people have done before and what they want to do. So I'm not going to give you a specific answer. But what I recommend is look on LinkedIn and look at the variety of profiles and careers that people have been going through. I think that the best thing you can do. People have been working in lots of fields, lots of types of companies, small, big, as data scientist, as product manager, as data analyst, as business, and they've been data engineer, lots of things that the people have done. And it really depends a lot on what people want to do, or just business consultants, strategy consultants, everything is feasible, investment banking, and you name it. Okay, so let me now, if there's no further question right now, let me just go through the short overview. I mean, it's in a brochure, but just like the philosophy of the program. So if you enter the 2-year program, the first year of the program is really about a semester one, which is September to December, so it's a short semester. Will be taking place at CentraleSupélec, and it's really kind of putting everyone back to the level in math, statistics, IT, databases, coding, as well as some introduction to management and some business cases. So the idea is really like, to have like 4 months when everybody kind of is on the same level with maths and stats and coding. So for some students, this is a time where these are the courses that you may think you already done, but the level is actually quite high. So even students who have done maths in the, quite a lot of maths in their undergrad, will find that it's quite challenging because we're really trying to kind of take you to a good level. And of course, people will manage, but it's something that is, you have to, it's a good opportunity to really kind of, improve a lot on your maths and stats skills, and really can get going with coding if you haven't done enough in the past. And then the second semester is giving you a general education about management economics. So even if you have done that in the past, the type of courses that we provide are the core courses from our master in management. So that for students who already have typically quite a lot of economics management behind them. So it's really like a high level master program courses. And we can reinforce on econometrics, statistics, and coding, Python in particular. And you also have access to a lot of electives from ESSEC, from different programs. And we also give you like some first courses in business analytics, IS management, information system management, business analytics, starting to introduce data science. And you also have courses in optimization, and some people can do also a bit of machine learning. So the idea is to really give you like a broad education, so that you all of you are really good understanding of the business side aspect as well as the data science aspect. And you have master classes, hackathons, and you have the option to do a 3-month internship over the summer. So it will be 3 months, July to September, but you can start part-time before that, because the courses, courses do finish in June, but they do not take the whole week. So we will leave some time off so that you can start an internship if you like part-time at the end of this academic year. Okay, and then the second year, people who enter directly in the 1-year program, so in the Master 2, will have like the bootcamp induction in September, and we're just finishing it right now because it's some exams are tomorrow and Friday, and basically the idea is that you have some seminars, business society, some team buildings, teaching, introduction to negotiation, some fundamentals of the digital business. And you also have some refreshers depending on your background. So you have cost analysis, financial accounting, mathematics, statistics, coding, and languages, Python in particular. And we actually provide this depending on what you've done before. So this is kind of an intense bootcamp type month, like a real induction. So everybody, no matter what your background, once you've been admitted in a Master 2, we believe and we do our best to ensure that you succeed. And that's kind of the commitment on our side. If you work regularly and if you commit on your side, we will do our best so that you really make it through, and we will provide all the help we can. And this is really like making sure that you're ready for the core courses at the end of September. Then October to December, you're joined with former M1 students arrive here. And that's the core courses of master classes. So Mondays and Tuesdays at ESSEC, and Wednesdays and Thursdays at CentraleSupélec. So we do insist that people do not live on either campus, but we provide accommodation at Cité Internationale Universitaire de Paris, which is international housing. And it's really a very nice place, and it's located in center, like quite central Paris. And it's like really in between the two schools. So that's really the best option for you. And then you have intensive courses, so 7 core courses, and as well as some master classes. And then from January to March, you will be having courses only at CentraleSupélec in data sciences. So you have lots of electives to choose from. I'll give you a list in a second. And April, June, you can either do the business analytics elective at ESSEC or move to Singapore for digital strategy with, we're going to revamp it a little bit. We've just hired a new professor from Riken Institute, which is an AI institute in Tokyo, Japan. So we will adjust a little bit, and we haven't finalized it yet. We're going to do it in the next couple of weeks because this person is not arrived yet, this new professor. And this is kind of the digital strategy on AI in Singapore. That would be April to June. Or you can go to Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, either to the Master in FinTech in the engineering school, or the Master in IS Management in the business school. And throughout this, you have what we call a corporate research project, which some universities call capstone, but it's really about research. So the idea is for 6 months, you'll be working as in a group of 5 students, which will be heterogeneous by design, and you will be working together for a company, with a company that has an interest in working with you. The idea is that we provide data and we provide coaching, and we will provide different type of coaches, making sure that you understand the scientific aspect of the program, you do your best with the scientific elements of this project, but also really place it well within the company. So about the business value and making sure that you bring value to the company. So it's not just a proof of concept, you kind of do the best and you give it to the company, but we really want to make sure that you understand what is at stake when you act as a data scientist for or with a company. So that the idea is we really should be able to understand the business problem that they're facing and provide new solutions. So really, it means that you need to really kind of target beyond what they actually probably expect, to really provide new solutions and new techniques and place it that they really use it, and it's super valuable for them. So we do that because we think that it's super important for you to understand and this interaction with the company, because one of the dangers with data science is that you wouldn't learn some techniques, but with only working on set cases that are well designed and clean, and when you expect a specific answer. But we think it's really important to confront yourself to people who are not necessarily data scientists, and you may but you need to convince of the benefit you can bring to them. At the same time, being able to really place yourself and understand the value you can bring. So that's something which is quite important. So you have 1 day per week on CRP, and that's quite important. And then from July to December, you have to do either an internship or a job, full-time, permanent or fixed term, depending on what you'd like to do. Either is possible, we don't care, but what we want is to make sure that, and it's also a requirement by the French law, that you actually do have this first-hand experience, which is important right at the start of the master, so that you're really kind of placed well, and that kind of helps you with the career. It's quite open, but it has to relate to the program here. Or it could be it can be a research internship, it can be a different type of placement, but that's quite important. And finally, once all is completed, you have the jury. So for the new cohort, that is, for the people that are entering the Master 2 right now, they will have a jury in 2024. Okay, so I've given you like an overview. I see that there's been one question, but before I do, this is kind of the course, and it's on the brochure, so I'm not going. You can just have a quick look here. So you see, the idea is that you have 7 courses, core courses in the first term in M2, big data analytics, marketing analytics, and forecasting and predictive analytics. These are ESSEC courses. Optimization, there are several levels depending on your background. Machine learning, several levels depending on your background. And big data techniques and platforms, that's also an important course on foundations of deep learning, which we believe has become really central for everyone to do. So these are 7 core courses, and everybody has to pass them, and then you can choose electives. So you have electives in data science, depending on what you'd like to do. It can be data viz, it can be more related to network science, it can be advanced deep learning, some more reinforcement learning, which is important, graphical models, and natural language processing. So all these elements that are essential. And then business analytics, so depending on what you want to do, some are more finance oriented, some are more consulting oriented. One is about entrepreneurship, and some are really kind of a general purpose analytics that you'll be using in any company, like decision analysis. That's kind of the idea, and we're going to create some new elective this year. Or you go to Singapore, and will be much more about the digital aspects, about marketing strategy, disruption. Some courses which are more technical but are used for marketing purposes, or any kind of type of modeling that relates to economics and management, typically simulation-based model of inference. Elements of cybersecurity. You'll be working on a capstone there as well. So you'll be working on the corporate research project, but then from a distance, because you still be working on it, but moving to a different group and different elements. Or you can go to Hong Kong if you like. And throughout study trip that will take place in February, you have corporate visits, hackathons, and things like that. Okay, so I see that I've got quite a few questions, so let me go through them maybe now. So, okay, so we have one question about so Lisa Xue, so Jia Xue, I can't answer this question. It's too vague, unfortunately. I'm afraid. Don't hesitate to ask. So we have, if you go from the website, there's like the admissions office and the people that they can help you in detail. It really depends on your specific background, or talk to the correspondent that we have in any continent. We have somebody who's dedicated to answering the questions, helping you with other questions. Because if you already have, if you already have a master degree in data science, the question you should be asking yourself is, okay, if you believe that you already have all of that, so what is value added for you to do this extra course? I mean, you don't need necessarily an extra program. One thing you cannot do is you cannot do in alternance. So you have to work. This is a full-time program. It's not, you see, you have a lot of courses, and the requirement is difficult. So we cannot do it part-time. That's the answer can give you to that. The specifics, then you should read. It needs a bit more than the time we have here. The timeline is for Abhishek. The timeline is the same for everybody once you've been accepted. Whether you apply for first, second, or third of, I think. Sorry, I never know how many rounds we have. We have 4 rounds. No, we have 3 rounds. I'm not sure what you mean by the timeline. Maybe if you could clarify a bit more your question. But you have the certain times, and then once you accept it, everybody starts at the same time. There's no difference in terms of program depending on when you apply. It will always be September or late August, in fact, for people that are arriving directly in the M2. So apprentissage. So no, unfortunately, you cannot do apprentissage during the first year. For the 1-year program, you cannot do apprentissage. For the 2-year program, we haven't put it in place yet, but that's something that may, but I can't promise that will be possible next year. Apprentissage is not really something that is, for people who don't know, the idea is like you work part-time for a company that actually covers for your student or for the school fees. So that's quite interesting, and you have no commitment to work for them afterwards. But other programs at ESSEC and CentraleSupélec can allow for that, and ESSEC in particular, lots of students do that. For this program, because of the joint nature of the program, it's very intensive, and we cannot put it in place. Yeah, I mean, all the courses do refer to real life cases. So group work and project-based teaching is very important for all the courses. That's one also which is specific to, maybe French education, which is not, it's theoretical, but at the same time, both CentraleSupélec and ESSEC have got a lot of contacts, and all our professors have got a lot of contacts with companies. So we rely on a lot of cases throughout. I think I've gone through the questions right now. Okay. So there will be an intercohort party, which this year will be October 10th. You have access to language courses in French, which is something which lots of people want to do. You don't have to speak French here, but it's more convenient if you do. And it's while you're in France, why not learn French? Especially if you want to work in France afterwards, it always helps, in particular with consulting. For which, depending on whether you work for a French practice, it could be you have to think about your level in French. Some companies are more, have a stronger requirement about French language, but we can ask the admissions or have the discussion separately. But lots of students don't work in France afterwards, so you don't have to do it anyway. We have master classes, so data ethics and regulation is an important one, information governance, sustainability, data sustainability, data design, or things like that. You'll have a study trip, which is a field trip where we visit companies and interact possibly with universities. So we've been going to Dublin, Stockholm, Berlin. We had a few years online. This year we went to Budapest, and it's students that choose where we're going. So we don't know yet where we're going in February. So a hackathon organized by a partner company in March or April, and then lots of campus fairs and company presentations, and you have access to career centers and kind of professional development support, modules about entrepreneurship, the corporate search project, and you have the all of this. Right, so I forgot to put the list of people the corporate research project, but usually you can see that from LinkedIn, because students write the corporate research project because it's a 6-month experience. They write it on their LinkedIn account as the experience they've been having during the 6 months of the program. These are some of it's not just a complete list, it's just some of the companies. I just took that a bit at random. With some companies where people have been doing the internships this year. Okay, so we have some of them. You see, it's a kind of bank. So what you have like a consulting, Amazon. Amazon. I write several Amazons because it's it's in Luxembourg, in the US, in the UK. Artifact is consulting more like which is now quite broad, and they're placed in different countries. So we have lots of people in the Middle East, some in Asia, and some in France or the rest of Europe. So you have biotech, AstraZeneca. Atos is consulting, but specifically more software. They have insurance, banking, BCG is consulting. Capgemini Invent is also consulting. CentraleSupélec is research. Cisco, Cisco. Content Square is a big company that was funded by an ESSEC alumni, which is one of the success stories of the last few years. Credit Suisse, so Danone, Criteo. Criteo is a software provider for embedding on websites. Some kind of, sorry, I realized that I did it very badly. There's some repeats, Datadog, Dataiku. It's also a software company, Ecometric Consulting, NG in the energy. So for people who read German, that's it's more like a research-based. Givaudan is perfume. Google, JD, well, you probably know. L'Oreal, also different countries. Ledger, so like a startup. That's not startup, Ledger, but about cryptos. McKinsey, Zalando. It's about shoes, online shoes. If I remember correctly, with Wise. These are startups that lots of our students have been working for them. Shift also is quite an interesting one. Quantum Black, it's in McKinsey. QuantCube is the data, kind of an interesting company that has access to a huge amount of data sets, and they do a great job with that. It's a small company, And I realized that it appears twice as well and did a very poor job. P&G, and everything. Okay. The ESSEC Collective is online company that sells that kind of does like second-hand clothing. Right. So you have this, and you have the country. So for lots of people did decide to stay in France, but it depends on individual preferences of people. That I talked about already, and then I think it's time for questions. We have another 15 minutes, and I can answer a question that you want, or we can go back to some of the questions that were for which I said that I didn't have enough time. It was too specific, but maybe more general questions to start with, if you have any, and then we can do individual specifics. Knowing that I don't have access to your syllabus, so I cannot judge right now about your specific syllabus, and it will depend on what grades you had and what courses you took. So we can talk, but it will necessarily be somewhat general, because of course I'm not going to ask you to share your transcripts here. So, but don't hesitate to ask any questions. I'm listening. Okay, so Abhishek, yeah, that was your question. I thought I had an answer, but yes. So we only have one intake per year. It's the same for everybody. So if you accepted in any round, you start at the same time. We have several rounds. First, because it depends on when you want to apply during the year, when you're ready, because you have to take GMAT and GRE, how easy it is for you. Some people choose different rounds because they want to optimize between different schools. Know that we do not provide advanced results, even if you've been accepted by a different school, and you need to know before the deadline whether you're accepted by ESSEC and CentraleSupélec. We do not do that. There's no minimum requirement for the scores, because we know that they will depend on your background. So that's a question for Avani, response to Avani. So the grades that I put were a minimum. Yet, if you do think that you have a very low score, either you have a good reason, and I would recommend that you try the test again if your score is very low, in particular the quant. Verbal and analytics and DRE, we also look at them carefully. So don't think that it's only the quant that matter. The others do matter as well, and you need to be, whenever you take a test, do your best and prepare carefully for the test. If there are any people here, anyone here that hasn't done any GMAT or GRE in the past, you should know that they need a lot of preparation, and you must prepare for them. You cannot say, oh, I didn't have the time to prepare. You must make the time to prepare. Okay, that's important. We don't know. Then we understand that specific background, you may have lots of good reasons why you did better or worse, and we don't look at only those scores, because we know they're an indication, but they're just one of the many elements that we take into account. But if you do very poorly on those, we will not be able to take you. So there's no minimum yet. There's some kind of leeway. If it's not good, then the rest of your file will have to be very good. If it's very bad, then we may not be able to take you, because there's some it's not everything about you. It's just a small element. But if you cannot get a good grade at the GMAT or GRE, it means that maybe there's something that you need to change a bit about the way you prepare for this, and we have to rely on some of those elements. So 162. 162. The average is 164 for the M1. So this is kind of the average, means that some people are above and some people below. So if you have above 160, then you're good to go. Depending on your background, of course. If you have a maths background, if you did a bachelor or a master in maths or statistics, and you have if you don't have a top grade in the GRE, that's more surprising. And then it asks some question compared to somebody who comes from the humanities, for instance. Okay, so you have to weigh it depending on your own background and this information. So scholarships. So we offer scholarships, and there are access to scholarships, and you have access to other scholarships in France, particularly if you apply to round 1. If you want to get access, to have access to the Eiffel scholarship in particular, let me just write it in. They are quite good scholarships, but we need to submit the file by the end of December, early January. So it means that you have to apply to round 1. There are other scholarships. People from India in particular have the George Sharpak, I think, scholarship. I don't, or maybe I'm getting it wrong. There are a lot of scholarships around outside ESSEC. Scholarships at ESSEC provide about, it depends. You have different types of scholarships. About half, the best one is half the tuition, and so about 12 to 13,000, and some are 10,000 euros. So that's kind of the different types of scholarship that we have. And then we also have partners, so partner companies that IQ and 3M, that have provided scholarship for women data sciences. That's specifically targeted for women to make sure that we keep having a good ratio of women and proportion of women in the program. But you also have to apply in round 1 or 2 to be eligible for those. Any questions? I realize that I didn't fully answer your question. So for requirement scholarships, it varies. So that's why we have either you have a fantastic profile, like super background, so we have excellent scholarships, or you have a profile which is quite different. So we have also diversity scholarships, which are for students who are different from somehow. I mean, I don't want to be specific about that, but there's something about them that we say, okay, they bring to the diversity of the program, and something which is very important for such a program to have a diverse cohort. So we also have that. When I said you have women data sciences, so women data sciences, the 2 companies we choose, we do a shortlist, and then the companies pick and choose between the shortlist that we do within shortlist of students. And then the other scholarships are outside our control, but we do provide letters of recommendation for students that would like to apply to those. No further questions? Bishak, good question. Any tips? Well, the motivation is important. So we need to know, and it has to make sense. You know, you have to we don't expect something, you know, like it's out of, you know, we know, we know like your background, where you come from, and you apply. So what we found that people do not apply at random to this program. So everybody who applies, it makes sense that they should apply. I would say everybody, 95% of people who apply. So, we're also always very impressed by the level of the people that apply. So that's important. So, but just ask yourselves before you apply, ask yourself, okay, is this a program that is for me? It has some specifics. You see, look really at the program. So we have a lot of coursework in second year and the M2 with a lot of maths, for instance, and also the CRP. So we have a requirement for that you actually learn how to interact with a company. So if you really want to work only on data science and mostly computer science, that's probably not for you. If you want to work only on data science and don't want to do a pure research program afterwards without any, and you don't want to work and to interact with kind of company cases, maybe you have to ask yourself, maybe you should go for a program that is really at a university only and super theoretical without any business analytics in a sense. But so I'm saying you really have to ask yourself why you want to do this and if this is a program that is meant for you. The main thing here in this program that we mix between the two schools, so really make the, as you've seen, we have a lot of courses from either school, and we keep mixing them throughout the program, which other joint programs may not do. Some programs have like 1 year of maths and coding, and then the year later, you just do strategy and you try to find some applications. And we don't think it's a good, it's not our approach, because what we think is like whenever you learn something, a technique, a methodology, some theoretical aspect, you have to know how to apply it and for what it is, for what it's good. And I think we think that is important because that's really what we say that does the best for our students, because you are really, you're really learning by doing at the same time as you understand the foundation. So that's to ask yourself, okay, why do I want to do this program? Is this program for me? And once you convince yourself of that, then your letter of application will be much better. Okay, that's very important. Recommendations are important, so don't neglect them. So the recommendations are there. And usually we ask for one person, who has more academic background, and one person who has more of a professional background, if you can. That's a good way to approach it. So somebody more like, on how you behave in a workplace, on an internship, or within a group, and one which more on the academic side. People that know you well, that's important. If you can. We know it's not always easy to know professors well when you're in a bachelor program, but try to find somebody that knows you well if you can. It's not essential. So then ask yourself, okay, prepare the tests, the standardized scores, GMAT, GRE, prepare them well. That's very important. Or Taj-Maj, but I don't think anybody will do the French Taj-Maj here. That's about it. Then you see that you have the file, you have to answer all the questions, but these are really about you trying, these are easy to answer once you've convinced yourself that this is for you, because, it's a commitment for you. So we want people that, are happy to be here and, have chosen it and chosen to join this program, knowing what to expect. And then that's the best thing to do, because people will be happy, and it's a very demanding program, but it's quite an exciting one, and students are really happy at the end. So that's why we think it's important to keep this. And then that's about it. So if you have any issues, be honest and frank. Just explain if you think that's an issue. Explain anything. Be open and honest, and try to be as close to yourself as possible. That's the best thing. And if there's something that is problematic in your file, because in 1 year your grades were very low, do explain. Just explain to us, because we will see that. So don't expect that we will miss something. Just say, okay, you will notice that that year was not doing so well, and you may have good reasons, but it's important that you try not to hide anything. So honesty is important there as well. I don't know if I've answered your question, and I don't think Abhishek is. I say here, Abhishek, you're still here. So I hope that this kind of helps you a bit. Don't hesitate if you want to follow up. I think you can also can always unmute yourselves and show your video, but. Feel free if you have any further questions. Just as a matter of principle, I see that Ralph has his photo. It's always nice to do. Try to put your photo if you can, if you don't mind. It's always nice to have somebody's photo. So so that it's not just names, but he's going anyway. Chairs, no, we don't have chairs because the program is in itself. No, the chairs in the MIM program is, the idea of the chairs are to, the MIM is super general and the chairs are there for students to specialize in something. This is already a program that is very general, but quite specialized. So we don't have chairs. And if it's interaction with companies, we have lots of companies, interaction, we have especially, for instance, we have like people with the BCG Gamma. I think Abdel Munaim, the executive director, is organizing it for next month. So we have interactions with companies a lot. So we don't, there's no specific need for a chair, because the chair is essentially what, I mean, what do they do in the chairs? They would do something like the corporate research project, so the CRP. So already have it in our program embedded. So that's kind of the idea. Okay, dokie. I think we've gone through everything, unless there's like one last question. Okay, so I think it's time to wrap up. So you have, yeah, contact Johnny if you have any questions, or contact ESSEC Asia at essec.edu, and hopefully I look forward to meeting some of you next year. Bye-bye then.